In our message last week, we peeled the onion back on the Biden administration's American Jobs Plan. We pointed out that it looks like about $210 billion of the more than $2 trillion plan will be available for paving and bridges. This week, we'll cover the administration's Made in America tax plan, which is how the president proposes to pay for his infrastructure bill. We'll also take a peek at House T&I Committee Chairman Peter DeFazio's announcement that he's moving forward with a robust transportation bill. So how does President Biden suggest paying for his infrastructure plan? Central to his approach is a hike in the corporate tax rate, as well as ending federal fossil fuel subsidies and moving to end offshore tax havens for corporations. I'm pretty sure you've heard some of the finer points on these things in the news. The president is calling this his Made in America tax plan. It's not for our association to look upon this approach as good or bad. How we each view this as individuals surely depends on our perspectives and our political leaning. But the fact is that the president's American Jobs Plan represents an historic public investment representing about 1% of gross domestic product per year over 8 years. It's a huge investment, and frankly, ACPA has been calling for a huge infrastructure investment for years. If enacted, the plan will upgrade and positively impact our nation's infrastructure, and such work must be paid for somehow. The corporate tax plan intends to fully pay for the infrastructure bill within the next 15 years. It's also fair to point out that there is some concern because the Biden plan is separate from the reauthorization of the surface transportation bill that Congress must pass by October 1st. Biden's initial budget calls for flat funding on the surface transportation reauthorization, so count any additional money for highways only through his infrastructure plan. Interestingly, last week, House Transportation Chair Peter DeFazio went on record intending to advance an ambitious surface transportation bill. He is pressing forward with his Moving America Forward Act that the House passed last July. It provides $319 billion for highway investment over 5 years. This represents roughly a 42% increase over the current levels. Does this set up a battle between the president's infrastructure bill and reauthorization led by DeFazio? Some people are afraid it will. Regardless of what happens with the president's big infrastructure plan, Congress must address reauthorization by October 1st or extend the FAST Act again. DeFazio expects to move his legislation out of committee by the third week of May, so we'll have to see how this plays out with the Biden administration's plans. As for how DeFazio's bill would be financed, the same funding issues that have plagued past highway bills are still in play. We've seen everything from indexing the federal gas tax to issuing bonds proposed before. DeFazio is now on record aiming to include a national vehicle miles traveled pilot program in his bill. The pilot program would set the stage for a long-term change in the funding model, but won't necessarily provide the answer now. In tribute to a quote by the late Illinois Senator Everett McKinley Dirksen, "A billion here, a billion there, and pretty soon you're talking real money." How this all comes down will be very interesting indeed. The best news of all is that infrastructure is squarely on the radar screen. Until next time, thank you for your membership. Please stay positive and make it a great week.